Hello, Kerry. Lovely to see you. Thanks for coming and talking with us. This is My Brave Australia. We are at the Rural Mental Health Conference, which is in Albury between the 8th and the 10th of November. So, Kerry, can you tell us who you are, where you're from, and what brings you to the conference?
So my name's Kerry Khann and I live in Thaguna, but I work in Wodonga at Gateway Health. I work in the Head to Health program, assisting people with mental health, working on anxiety and depressive symptoms.
And so the Head to Health, that's the Commonwealth program, isn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah, great. And what brings you to the conference today?
So my workplace had paid for a number of clinicians to come along.
And so you are a clinician? What's your...
No, I'm not termed as a clinician, so it's a little bit of a grey area. What I do is lived experience mental health support for people.
Right, so you're a peer worker in some ways?
Yes.
Yeah, peer work support.
Correct.
To clients. And how do you find building trust with the clients that come into the service?
I'm very lucky. I've been able to build a lot of trust with people, and I think that's because I couple my academic stuff with my lived experience stuff. So I do have a counselling diploma and I do have a mental health diploma, so that works hand in hand with what I do.
And when you say, oh yes, I've got a lived experience, what's that like for your clients? How do they react to that?
Sometimes it actually makes them feel 10 times more comfortable that hey, you've been through something too, that obviously there's been a struggle, you've worked through that struggle and you've come out the other side of that. So I've been well now for over 12 years and loving it.
And what keeps you well? How do you keep well over that 12 years?
So the first thing that I did do was I made a commitment to be well, and that was really important, was to make that commitment and to not just look at, oh, medication's going to fix this. It was, what can I do to fix it? So I have a very, I suppose, good self-care routine where I meditate every morning before work. So when I come into work, I come in with a clean slate. I'm not bringing my stuff into the session. That session is specifically for that person.
So in a sense, mindfulness is incorporated in your everyday. Would that be a fair thing to say?
Yes, it is. So I use mindfulness with myself, but I use it also with others. So soon I'll be looking at launching some meditation, a workshop around meditation at Gateway. I also teach Peer Zone, which is a set of 16 mental health workshops around managing money, around managing your lifestyle, managing trauma, dealing with distress, those types of things, so that it becomes a living skill for each person that goes through the program, so they can build their own capacity around, getting well, staying well, keeping well, and that becoming a part of the whole lifestyle.
Well, and so you're running these groups.
Correct.
And so with those, is there like a central Head to Health resource, or are you tailoring it to your clients in your group? How does that work in terms of delivering the program?
So Peer Zone came about in my previous role as a psychosocial recovery coach for people on the NDIS, and I brought that across into Head to Health. So I was running it for their people before I was employed by the Head to Health team.
Oh, and so now you mentioned there dealing with distress and dealing with trauma.
Yeah.
What is it that you do to engage with people that are experiencing distress, and how is it that you make your place a safe space for people with trauma?
I think it's largely about setting up the right parameters when you're in session, and I think it's about not being afraid to get down onto those levels with people and to sometimes sit in the muck of it, sometimes sit where it's really raw, and talk about what can help bring them out of that, what can help build capacities and build resilience, and talk about, I suppose, things like their core lessons from, okay, this has happened to you, but what's your takeaway from it now? What has it taught you, and how can that help you progress in your life?
And so what would you say, based on your experience with your clients, what does help with dealing with trauma?
I think it's the trust. I think that's, you know, the icing on every cake. I think it's the trust that's there. I think that, they're very brave to share their stories with me, and I take that with the utmost respect, and I keep that private. That's really important, that they've found a person that's they can share that story with, and that it will remain safe. It's paramount to what I do.
So with these people that are experiencing trauma, now if they were to have, say, someone that's not you, say someone that's a clinician with one of the standard type qualifications, if people were to come in and perhaps feel like they were being judged, how do you think that would go in terms of their experience of treatment?
Yeah, so I have come across that in my earlier career, that people have found a therapist that it didn't quite work with. And it's like anything. You wouldn't go out and buy a shirt that's 2 sizes too small, that's the wrong colour. So, and it's as much the same with therapies. Like, I guess it's one of those things where you can look around and work through what therapist feels right for me. And sometimes talk therapy is not the ultimate thing for everybody. Not everybody wants to engage in a counselling commitment. And that's okay too. There are other forms of therapy. There's hypnotherapy, there's timeline therapy, there's kinesiology, there's yoga, there's meditation. It's let's find the things that work for you. Yeah, so, I think it's important to find, if you are going to enter into talk therapy with people, that you find the right therapist that resonates well with you, that you feel safe with.
And so have you got any comments about how you think services should react to people with trauma? So you've mentioned trust, that's a key one. Are there any other factors you can think of, like, I don't know, in terms of spaces? I'm just throwing some things out there. Sort of a sensory, like, soft cushions, soft muted colours. Is there anything along that line that you think would be useful for people?
Yeah, so I do have ideas in my head how I would like each therapy room to look, but that's not always what you get.
Well, can we just go with what you would like if you were in charge of the world, how you would do it?
Okay, so I'd make, I suppose I would use soft colours for the paint in the room.
What kind of colour?
So
I want to imagine
light blues.
Light blues, yeah.
Yeah, and purples. And I think that, I'd make it as comfortable as possible. Often when I go into a session with people, if I'm working with people who have high anxiety, I will dim the light and say, is that better for you? Because often that can be a trigger. So that's one of the first things I'll go into a session room with a person and say, I'm just going to turn that light down just a little bit more, so they're not as intimidated. They're not so, I guess, exposed. So I'll work in that dimmer light format, which is more comfortable for them. So I make sure that I'm setting the right parameters up in that room as best as I can.
And so when you say you build trust, how much of your time do you share that you've got a lived experience?
So
percentage, I guess.
Yeah, so I was really lucky when I first got my start at Gateway Health. I worked under a wonderful woman. I don't know if I'm allowed to mention her name or not, but she's a wonderful woman, so I'll just leave it at that, who was also a psychosocial OT. So the methodology, what we ran by was to use my lived experience where it is helpful for others, but not harmful for me. So I need to be able to come home at the end of the day where I'm not too raw either. So what I do is I sprinkle a little bit of the lived experience over the session. Not a whole lot, because ultimately the spotlight needs to reside with the client and not with me. So what I would do, for example, throughout a session is I would say things like, I went through something a little bit similar to that. When I went through it, these are the types of things I tried. Does that sound like something that could fit for you? Or what do you think might fit for you? Because ultimately it's their journey, right? So, and it's just about it it puts the spotlight back to them, and it also lets them be in charge of what their outcomes that they want to have. Whatever they want to learn from that experience. Yeah.
In some ways, you're teaching them that they can have a voice. If they've got a
Yes.
background of trauma,
Yeah.
it's probably a very foreign concept of like, you're in charge, what do you want to do? Like,
Yeah.
I'm just proposing perhaps that's not been something they have been used to in terms of saying, well, I would like this or I would like that.
Yeah.
So in a way, as part of your role, I'm not sure this is the right word, but it's something along the lines of a permission to imagine what could be. Do you feel that's a part of your role?
Yeah, I do. I really do. And I think that some people have come from a controlled relationship or had controlling parents. So part of what I do would be sort of coaxing them to come out of that box of control and say, well, okay, how would you like for things to be? What would you like to say to that person if you ever had a chance? So they can air some of that stuff, so that they can, in a safe space, step out of that control mechanism and look at their life from a different perspective. They never may have had the permission to be able to do that. So I give them the permission to be able to do that.
Right, now this one probably may be a little bit more difficult. How do you get clients who are homeless or vulnerable of homeless,
Yes.
and how is it for them engaging because they don't have an address?
Yes.
Can I just ask a bit about how that would work
Yeah,
with
so
your
sometimes
service?
people don't even have a phone, they don't have a mobile, they have nothing, So what we do is sometimes Head to Health in the past has provided an old mobile phone to those people so that there's a point of call and some phone credit. We do refer out to other services so that, there's other places that do provide housing. We don't, but there are other places that we can link you in with to help you work on that as a goal. So it's goal driven and,
Wow, and so would you say when they come to your service, you try to meet them where they are at that exact point in time? Would
Correct.
you say that's the right way to say what you
Yes.
do?
Yeah.
Could I ask you what your experience is about people, I guess, in the local area? What access, how it is to access services, whether it's a challenge, whether it's hard to go through the pathways. Have you got any observations just from what your clients tell you?
So even for myself, I will say that I guess when I was first diagnosed, it was a bit scary. I didn't know what to do with that, and just going to a mental health service was like, oh, what if someone sees me? There's all those feelings and stuff. So I'll often congratulate a client and say, well, thank you so much for being here with me today, and that's a really brave step that you've come this way to sit with me and attend our service, and try to make it as welcoming as possible.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you've mentioned mindfulness as a core part of your self-care. Can I ask what other ways you get self-care? And also, as a peer worker, what kind of supervision do you get in your role? So do you have like a peer work supervisor, or how does that work for you?
So I'm lucky actually. I have a peer work supervisor who's also a trained counsellor from Shark, and I also have one of our clinical lead counsellors who provides some supervision to me as well. So I'm very lucky. It's something I said I really want to have that supervision around what I do and how I do it, so that I'm learning more golden nuggets to bring to sessions as well. Yeah.
And all right, is there anything else you'd like to say now? This is your blank canvas. I suppose some questions could be like, is there anything you'd like to do with people that aren't in the constraints of current services that you think could be valuable? That's one thing. Or, I'm just throwing it over to you now. If there's anything else you'd like to say.
I suppose one of the most helpful things that happened for me was many years back a person invited me to be my authentic self, and no one had ever invited me to be my authentic self. And it wasn't until that person asked that question that I went, oh my God, how many masks do I wear? You know, so going back through my childhood, I had dyslexia, I played up at school, I had ADHD, I was not a settled kid. So I suppose it goes hand in hand that I was going to eventually get diagnosed with something, right? So this person invited me to be my authentic self and this person was a safe person, so I didn't have to protect myself. So I could start dropping those masks and you know, I hope that happens for every person, that they find that people that they can be their authentic self with,
wow.
and that they're safe with those people that invite them to do that. And what else would I like to say? Oh, just basically the theme that went over in my meditation this morning was, if you are struggling with your mental health, or you have been diagnosed with a mental health issue, you're not alone, you know, and it may feel like some days are really, really dark, but I'm going to crack off a little piece of my hope and I'm going to give it to each of you, and I want you to take that bit of hope with you, and I want you to build your own hope within you, that you will get through this journey, and if you're lucky like me, you'll get to share part of that journey with others that's helpful.
Thank you so much. That was just amazing, Kerry. We really
Thank you.
appreciate your time and your insights. Thank you.
Thank you.